Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Ken Parker, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. I would first like to thank Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite for joining us here today. And Ken, your presence means so much to us. It continues to illustrate the Department of Justice's enduring commitment to address the opioid problem in the Southern District of Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Alabama. Also, I have three colleagues joining us here today who are involved in the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force. Those colleagues are William Thompson, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia, Carlton Shear, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky, and Trey Hamilton, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Tennessee. I am pleased to be joined by another colleague from the Southern District of Indiana, and that is U.S. Attorney Zach Myers. I truly appreciate Christy Grimm, Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent in Charge Will Rivers, and Drug Enforcement Administration Assistant Administrator for the Diversion Control Division, Christy O'Malley, for joining us. The commitment and hard work provided to this endeavor by the special agents under your supervision, along with those of the Ohio Medical Control Unit, Kentucky and Alabama Medical Fraud Control Units, the West Virginia Southern Regional Drug and Violent Crimes Task Force, the U.S. Postal Service of Inspector General, and the Ohio Bureau of Prisons is incredible. We are so grateful for the work of our local law enforcement partners as well. We are in this fight together, and I truly thank you. Today marks another successful operation by the Health Care Fraud Unit and the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Forces of the Criminal Fraud Section, in partnership with our United States Attorney's offices against the illegal distribution of opioids by a number of bad actors in the medical profession. As we stated in 2018, when the Department of Justice established the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force and brought charges against a number of individuals in 11 districts for the distribution of 23 million pills, we stated this would not be a one-and-done spectacle, but an enduring commitment to stamp out opioid trafficking through the prescription pad. We continue to move forward on that commitment to address persons in the medical profession that are part of the opioid problem. Like any case, while these investigations may take time, we remain diligent to pursue and address any medical professional who violates his or her sacred oath to do no harm to our communities. Through our coordinated efforts, we will seek to address those medical professionals who seem to be more interested in personally profiting off of opioids than working within the scope of their professional standards to properly treat those persons in the community who are truly ill. These medical professionals, let me make clear, are operating no different than any drug dealer. They are simply donning white coats while they are prescribing dangerous levels of opioids. We will continue to bring these coordinated actions to address the opioid scourge in every manner that we can. Since its inception, the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force has charged over 100 individuals. Those individuals were collectively responsible for the distribution of more than 115 million pills. In the Southern District of Ohio, we have convicted 13 individuals, including 9 licensed medical professionals of drug distribution and/or healthcare fraud. 4 of those individuals have been sentenced to incarceration for their crimes, and 3 more are pending their sentencing hearings. The doctors in the Southern District of Ohio who have been convicted of illegally distributing opioids have also lost their medical and DEA licenses. Currently, we have five jury trials pending, with 3 slated to begin this summer in July and August. Today, we announced indictments against 2 additional doctors in the Southern District of Ohio, including one who is allegedly responsible for distributing approximately 2 million pills. My office will remain committed to the work of the Healthcare Fraud Unit and the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force. We will continue our work to press those in the community who struggle with addiction and substance abuse disorder to seek treatment and recovery. Seeking treatment and recovery is not a stigma, nor is it a badge of dishonor. Rather, it is necessary on the road of recovery and to lead a more fulfilling life. So again, I thank Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite for joining us. I thank each of my colleagues and law enforcement partners here today who have joined us. I remain confident and hopeful that bringing these cases will serve as a continued deterrence to those in the medical community who engage in bad acts. We will be relentless. We will not let up. These prosecutions will further protect those in the community suffering from addiction and substance abuse issues, and it will help stem the tide of the opioid epidemic in Southern Ohio and the Appalachian region. We will continue the fight. We will continue the good fight. Thank you, and at this time, we will hear from Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Ken. Let me just thank you personally, your office, and your entire district for the warm hospitality that we've enjoyed. And really appreciate you opening your arms to us to host today's event. It is an honor to be here in Cincinnati. I'm honored to be joined by a number of members of my criminal division family who serve with me in Washington, D.C. Also honored to be joined by a number of members of our healthcare fraud unit, legal support, as well as attorneys who have frankly dedicated their service to this particular region. And I have the great privilege of announcing the Department of Justice's 2022 opioid enforcement action, which highlights our latest efforts in responding to the nation's opioid epidemic. Now, be clear, this is an epidemic that in the last year alone has caused the tragic loss of life for more than 75,000 people across this country due to overdose. This is a staggering figure, and it makes clear that opioid overdoses continue to claim the lives of far too many Americans. Each death serves as a harsh reminder for us all of the families who are mourning the unimaginable loss of their loved ones, and communities that are ravaged by drug addiction. Indeed, the cases that we are announcing today include one such loss. As charged in the indictment of a Kentucky dentist, in August of 2020, a patient allegedly died from the morphine prescriptions this dentist issued. The department seeks to hold this dentist and the other defendants charged here today for allegedly unlawfully prescribing opioids, conduct that has helped fuel the opioid epidemic across this country. Today's enforcement action includes charges against 14 individuals, including 12 medical professionals who have been charged across 8 federal districts with crimes related to the unlawful distribution of prescription opioids. Together, these individuals are now responsible for issuing prescriptions for over $5.1 million in opioid pills. It is, of course, important to remember that these charges are allegations. The defendants are presumed innocent until they are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But be clear, I am making today's announcement just over 3 years after the creation of our ARPO strike force. This is a collaborative initiative that includes prosecutors from the healthcare fraud unit from our criminal justice main justice office. It includes prosecutors from our U.S. attorney's offices, and it includes our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners here in this region. It is designed to swiftly and effectively prosecute medical professionals and others involved in the illegal prescription and distribution of opioids. The ARPO strike force was created as part of the department's solemn promise to employ every tool at our disposal to address the opioid crisis. What that means is getting out of Washington, D.C., and getting into the communities that are most affected by this epidemic. We continue to uphold that promise daily, working shoulder to shoulder with our U.S. Attorney's offices and law enforcement partners throughout Ohio, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Alabama. Today, again, we are gathered here in the Southern District of Ohio, where again I am joined by my great friend and colleague, U.S. Attorney Ken Parker, along with U.S. Attorney Will Thompson of the Southern District of West Virginia, U.S. Attorney Carlton Scheer of the Eastern District of Kentucky, and U.S. Attorney Trey Hamilton of the Eastern District of Tennessee. We are also joined by our tremendous law enforcement partners, Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services, Christy Grimm, FBI Special Agent in Charge, Will Rivers, and DEA Assistant Administrator, Christy O'Malley. Together, over the last 3 years, we have made significant strides in holding medical professionals accountable for unlawfully prescribing opioids, conduct that has played a crucial and a harmful role in the opioid epidemic. To date, ARPO has charged over 100 individuals, over half of whom were prescribers, with crimes related to the unlawful distribution of prescription opioids. Together, these defendants are alleged to have issued prescriptions for over 100 million opioid pills. In our efforts together have resulted in over 60 convictions to date. Our work, our collective work, sends a clear message that medical professionals who violate their oath to do no harm and instead exploit vulnerable patients struggling with addiction, they will be held accountable. Those who peddle opioids for profits are not just committing crimes of greed. No, these are crimes that make this country's opioid crisis even worse, oftentimes with deadly results. So today, we gather and take this opportunity to commemorate this historic collaboration, to acknowledge the headway that we've all made, all while recognizing that our work is far from done. The department's response to the opioid epidemic remains nimble. We will continue to evolve and expand to address the needs of the people in the parts of the country where the epidemic has hit hardest. I stand ready to renew the promise that we made here 3 years ago. The ARPO strike force in the Department of Justice will continue to stand with its partners to combat this epidemic and to seek to prevent the next tragic loss of life. I will now turn the podium over to my friend and colleague, Inspector General Christy Grimm of HHS OIG.
Thank you very much, Assistant Attorney General Polite. Good morning. Today I am joined by my colleagues at HHS OIG, Deputy Inspector General for Investigations, Christian Schrenk, Special Agent in Charge for the Chicago Regional Office, Mario Pinto, and other HHS agents, very valued colleagues. The effects of improper prescribing and the resultant addictions continue to plague American families and communities, and this enforcement action demonstrates our resolve to combat this epidemic and help our communities recover. By pursuing providers who put beneficiaries' health at risk with unnecessary prescriptions, HHS OIG is putting patients and communities first. Millions of Americans struggle with opioid addiction, and tens of thousands die each year from drug overdoses. The effect on their families and communities is devastating. As the COVID pandemic challenged us these past 2 years, overdose deaths also rose significantly. HHS OIG steadfastly supports ongoing public health measures and pursues providers who put profits before patients. Our team of investigators and other professionals work tirelessly to detect and curb opioid-related fraud, waste, and abuse in HHS programs. The providers charged in this enforcement action saw their patients as customers and profit centers instead of people deserving care. Holding these providers accountable sends a strong message to others. We will not tolerate abuse of patient addiction for personal gain, and we remain committed to preventing patient harm and neglect. Healthcare fraud is not a victimless crime, and it is not just a financial crime. There are individuals and families who suffer because of the greed and carelessness of bad actors. To protect yourself and your loved ones from opioid-related fraud schemes, have discussions with your providers about care and treatment. If you or someone you know is seeking information related to treatment for substance use disorder, contact the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at their national helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. If you suspect that a provider is engaging in opioid-related fraud, please report it to the HHS OIG hotline at tips.hhs.gov or call 1-800-HHS-TIPS. Information received from the public plays a vital role in our detection and investigation of healthcare-related fraud and abuse. I want to thank the Department of Justice and AAG Polite in particular for focusing on the harmful effects of opioid fraud and healthcare fraud more broadly. The success of this operation relied on the hard work and dedication of the many HHS OIG agents and analysts that investigated these cases and the close coordination with our law enforcement partners. HHS OIG is proud to work alongside the Department of Justice, the Appalachian Regional Prescription Opioid Strike Force, the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, state and local law enforcement partners, and numerous Medicaid fraud control units. We cannot do this critically important work without our partners. Thank you, and next I will turn it over to Assistant Administrator for Diversion Control at DEA, Christy O'Malley.
Good morning. I'd first like to thank the Department of Justice, FBI, HHS, and many of our state and local partners who helped in these cases. I'm pleased to be joined by many of my colleagues here at DEA who have worked tirelessly in this region on these cases as well. Today's announcement would not be possible without the interagency collaboration that you see here. When a patient walks into a doctor's office, that patient has every right to expect that the doctor has the patient's best interests at heart. Sadly, the cases announced today illustrate numerous examples of doctors who put their own greed and their own profit motive above the well-being of their patients. But these cases also demonstrate that DEA, working hand in hand with our federal partners, will use every tool possible to stop drug diversion and fraud. This work has never been more critical. Right now, in the United States, an American is dying every 5 minutes from a drug overdose, and the majority of those deaths are from opioids. And yet, we have examples here today in these cases of doctors handing out opioids for cash without medical evaluations, doctors and pharmacies pocketing millions of dollars based on egregious overprescribing practices that completely disregard the health and safety of patients. Tragically, as you heard, we also have a dentist whose prescription for an opioid outside the usual practice of dentistry led to a woman's death. For the past several years, DEA has worked closely with our federal, state, and local partners to put an end to this conduct. And DEA will continue to work tirelessly each and every day to keep our communities safer and healthier. Thank you. And next, I would like to introduce Special Agent in Charge William Rivers from the FBI's Cincinnati Field Office for his remarks.
Good morning. Again, Will Rivers, Special Agent in Charge of the FBI Cincinnati Field Office. The opioid crisis is very personal to me. I was born and raised in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky, in the heart of Appalachia. The region is filled with good people who work hard and fight for opportunities to help their families survive and grow. They are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and other family members. Opioids have had a devastating impact on these people throughout that area. The doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and others involved in illegally prescribing opioids are abusing their positions in the community. Instead of working to help and heal, they are harming and hurting the people around them. Sadly, many are profiting off the addictions of Appalachians. That is why these enforcement actions are so important. They are targeting the medical professionals who are peddling these pills and taking advantage of so many and impacting so many lives. The FBI and all of our partners today want to be a part of ending the opioid crisis, as Ken talked about. We have made progress. Today's results truly indicate the progress we've made, but we still have work to do, and we're determined to continue that. We realize this is a long-term issue, and we are committed to being a part of that solution. So part of my ask of the community and the public to help save lives, we still need your assistance and support. People know of healthcare providers out there that are overprescribing opioids and killing loved ones and other community members. You can make a difference by alerting law enforcement. You can call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Your help in tackling this crisis is critical. Again, I want to thank all the investigators on the strike force with all the agencies involved for their hard work and effort and dedication to date. They work each day to save lives by bringing justice to those who are illegally prescribing the drugs and profiting off the addictions. Without the efforts of these investigative teams, we would not be here today. Again, you, the public, and the community play an important role in this. So if you have information, please let us know. Please call 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can submit online tips at tips.fbi.gov to report other prescription abuse. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, could you provide a few more specific details about the two cases in Southern District of Ohio that you announced the indictments of, locations, what cities, how many pills, just anything
All right.
you could, I can go find the indictment, but just
Yes, sir.
anything you can say.
Well, the two doctors, one is Dr. Kistler, and the other is Dr., and I want to make sure I pronounce his name correct, Getachew, Getachew. And Kistler is alleged to have overprescribed, I believe, hydrocodone, and the other is dealing with a Suboxone clinic and so forth. Kistler is the person I was referring to as far as dealing with prescribing 2 million pills in the community.
Can you say anything about the location? I see where.
Oh, they were indicted in our Columbus and Columbus as well. Yes, sir.
And it says here Getachew was 2 million. Do you know how many Kistler prescribed?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Mr. Parker, real quickly,
Yes, sir.
reference to the Kentucky dentist, obviously talked about quite a bit. I think I've been following that case for the last couple of weeks. Is that Dr. J. Sidrenia? I have that name correct because it doesn't say his name. So
Yes.
And the other thing I'll mention quickly, I looked at the website. It says descriptions of each case involved in today's enforcement can be found at this website. That looks to be healthcare fraud cases, COVID, and so forth. Is there? I would just make sure we have the right information about
Yeah, this.
criminal complaints.
Yeah, ARPO deals with healthcare fraud as well as the unlawful prescription of controlled substances. So distribution of controlled substances.
What
Yes.
I'm looking at there, it looks like these cases are in districts throughout the country, California notably, whatnot. So I guess the question would be, it just doesn't, I want to make sure I'm on the right page.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't seem to quite match what the regional aspect of this is. So I guess the question would be, and we can clarify that afterwards.
Yeah.
Why is this, obviously a lot of federal officials here, we don't see this very often. Why here in Cincinnati are we having this meeting today?
As was indicated, this is a commemoration of something that began in 2018. And as I indicated, we made a promise to the public that we wouldn't do a one and done, that this is an IOU, and that we would continue to let people know about what we're doing and about the enforcement actions that are going on. As indicated, at that time in 2018, we were dealing with 23 million pills. Well, we're not going to do a one and done. You look at it now, 115 million. So we continue to let those in the medical profession know that if you're going to engage in unlawful activity, that we are going to, we're here. We're going to continue to prosecute you.
Is this an ongoing problem? I mean, you would think by now that the medical profession would know that you guys are out there, that this is obviously, we're, what, 15 years into this epidemic.
Yeah.
Why does this continue?
Yeah, like all professions, the medical profession is a very noble one. The medical, those in the profession, they take a sacred oath. Unfortunately, there are persons within the profession that they are willing to peddle pills for profit. And those individuals, those actors are the persons to which we have to address. And we are not going to let up as far as ARPO. There was a question there, ma'am.
Yes, maybe just to ask what Todd did in a slightly different way. So the 14 people who are charged, are there only 2 that are relatively local, and those are in Columbus? Anybody from Cincinnati, and are they all doctors?
No one from Cincinnati, and no, they're not all doctors to my knowledge, ma'am.
So that website that has the new cases will be updated throughout the day. It has the 14 named defendants. And there are 4 defendants from the Northern District of Kentucky. So right here.
Okay, thank
right
you,
here.
yes. I have a
And
question.
are all of those indictments been released on PACER? We can go get the
They
indictments.
are unsealed.
Everything's unsealed.
Mr. Polly, if
Yes.
you don't mind, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly.
Polly, you got it.
Nice to see you. Yeah, welcome
Good
to
to see you.
Cincinnati.
Thank you.
Talk about ARPO, because the global kind of view, are there ARPOs elsewhere, obviously different names, or is this the big one?
ARPO represents one of our strike forces that we have out of our healthcare fraud unit in the criminal division. We have 15 others around the country. ARPO is one that actually covers more of a regional, so it actually covers multiple districts, multiple states, compared to others that are focused on particular cities or particular states. We also have a separate strike force that's based out of Washington, D.C., which kind of travels and addresses hot spots as they come up.
And I'll ask a question based on what James had said, because I think that the public, and I'm sure patients go to their doctors and assume that this stuff is being curtailed and so forth. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, but the
Yeah.
CASPER system, aren't there mechanisms that don't let doctors overprescribe things?
It is. There are a number of mechanisms in place. It still is very much a trust-based system that we deal with in terms of healthcare. And so as a result, it does require us, as U.S. Attorney Parker noted, it is a noble profession. We're not talking about all physicians that are doing wrong, but greed is a very powerful motive. And we see it in all of our cases, particularly in the healthcare realm. And so to the message, again, when we talk about leveraging every tool at our disposal, enforcement is absolutely a critical part of it, but you also heard a number of our law enforcement partners talk about outreach, talk about treatment. It also includes members of the community stepping up, and in this case, particularly the healthcare community, to help address themselves, to help police themselves, to help train themselves on how to avoid this type of criminality going forward.
You talk about greed. A couple of you have mentioned greed. Can you give any specific examples or dollar amounts for how much these pills are bringing in terms of dollars?
The $1 figure that I think we could give you for purposes of today's enforcement action is it's roughly $7.8 million of intended healthcare loss involved in the cases that are involved here.
And I would ask, and maybe the last thing I can think of at the moment is, there are pain advocates who argue that the pendulum has swung too far, that there are people who suffer unnecessarily, and there are patients we hear from that will say the same. There's a balance there. How do you strike that, and what do you say to those people?
It's always a balance, and I'm very sensitive, and I suspect all of us are very sensitive to the legitimate use of opioid prescription in our community and across our country that does help a lot of individuals. With that said, we also see this overprescription leading to the overuse of synthetics and ultimately to fentanyl, which we know is a very powerful and ultimately a very lethal synthetic opioid that's on our streets.
We've got time for one more. Yeah.
Can we ask the public to say something if they see, something bad happening? Were any of those indictments, were any of those from people, regular people like us saying, hey, I think this doctor's doing too much?
I'm not sure about the details. That's an excellent question. It is oftentimes where we have members of the public that step forward and actually come forward and help us identify those types of bad actors. We can get that information to confirm whether that was the case. If we can share that type of information, as you suspect, some of that information will be confidential as part of our ongoing investigations.
This is important, and I'm always, whenever I have officials like this, let's get the word out to
Yeah.
families. The One Pill Can Kill campaign, Jason Schumacher here at the DEA, always emphasizing that, and I would like, that is so scary. I have kids.
Yeah.
This stuff is incredibly dangerous. What's the message, and what do you say?
That's exactly right. One pill, one dosage, one small sample can be absolutely lethal. The reality is that oftentimes what you see out on the street, you have no idea what you're actually buying, what it might be mixed with. And if you have a very small dosage of fentanyl, it can be very lethal very quickly.
Last one, seriously.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
I'm under the impression earlier that some of these medical professionals have been indicted were peddling Suboxone, which is a treatment medication, as we all know. Is a treatment medication that is designed with naloxone in it to prevent overdose. It's a treatment medication that, at least for those who have substance use disorder, prevents those people from getting food. My question is, how were those who were charged with overprescribing Suboxone unlawfully distributed? Were they giving it to patients? Were they giving it to people in inappropriate settings? How were
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Even within the medical profession, there are standards, and you can go beyond the scope of those standards, and that is what the charges bring. You have to stay within the standards of that profession. And when individuals overprescribe, they are technically, and they know, they are peddling for profit, those pills. And that is where you find the line of demarcation between a very good actor and one that is in their profession for the wrong reasons.